Welcome to Trail Mix, a fresh blend of what's happening at Rowan-Cabarrus Community College and in the world of higher education. It's everything you need to keep you informed, inspired, and as always, navigating forward. Welcome to this episode of Trail Mix. I'm your host, Carter Wingfield, and today we're discussing Grammarly and AI and how they are being used in the educational and higher ed space. AI within higher ed has been a large topic of interest, so today's guests are here to discuss how it's being used at Rowan-Cabarrus and where they see it moving in the next 3, 4, 5 years. We have with us Jenny Maxwell from Grammarly, alongside Dr. Zack Hubbard and Dr. Jenny Billings from Rowan-Cabarrus Community College. I'll kick it over to them to introduce themselves, but welcome and thanks for being here.
My absolute pleasure being here. My name is Jenny Maxwell, and I have the privilege of leading the global education team for Grammarly. In my role, I manage the team that works with our thousands of customers across K-12 and higher ed from all over the world. I'm very excited for today's conversation.
Thank you, Carter. Yeah, my name's Dr. Zack Hubbard, and I've been at Rowan-Cabarrus for about 14 years now, both in a faculty role initially, working with our computer technology integration students, and then later as Chief Information Officer, and now I have the pleasure of working with both our Information Technology Support Group as well as Corporate and Continuing Ed.
Hello, I am Dr. Jenny Billings. I am over the Associate of Arts degree, ACA, which is Study Skills, and the English department here at Rowan-Cabarrus. I have been here since January of 2011.
Awesome. And you are officially our second time podcast guest.
Well, thank you so much.
Huge honor. So
I absolutely agree.
I guess thanks for coming back. I mean, I guess that means we're doing something okay.
You're doing a great job. Yes, sir. Yes.
If we didn't scare you off the first time. So
no, it was great.
Well, thank the three of y'all for being here today. I'm very excited about this conversation. I think a lot of people are very interested in AI and education. So I think it's a really important conversation for us to have. So just to kind of get things started, I think Jenny Maxwell, and I'm going to try to use last names as well just to create a little less confusion for the listeners. But Jenny Maxwell, I think most people are very familiar with Grammarly in the education space, but can you give a quick background on how Grammarly has moved specifically into the educational AI space?
Absolutely, I can. So Grammarly has been working across both the educational and professional landscape since 2009. When we were founded, and we were a very bespoke tool that was created by our 3 Ukrainian-born founders who recognized the need for support for non-native English speakers as they were communicating in sort of both low-stakes communication like email all the way up to long-form writing and content. Cool. We started specifically as an ed tech company, and we've been working with sort of our AI and our algorithms since the inception of the company. 3 years ago, in a couple weeks, launched the era of a different type of AI with generative AI coming into the commercial space. And we decided to take our position as the world's most trusted writing partner to become the world's most trusted writing partner supported with AI tools. And in order for us to do that, we had to start thinking a lot more boldly about our position and giving both students and professionals access to tools and insights into their own writing process that complemented what generative AI could give them. So instead of just being another tool that spits out content or spits out various outputs to questions, we actually decided, what if we could start creating an ecosystem of tools that gave you insight into your writing and how you might achieve different goals in your writing, depending on your audience and depending on what type of writing you were working on. So we've been in the space for a long time. And I would say in the last 2 years and change, we've really started to hone in specifically in the needs of those 2 different audiences. So my role as the head of education is to say there are needs that students and faculty and researchers and institutions have that are unique to them that aren't necessarily something that we would want to create for professionals. There might be some overlap, and that's great, But really, we need to think a lot more holistically about how AI can support learning in this new era of AI, and how that management of learning can also be applicable to people as they move out of their collegiate experiences and into their professional lives. So, it's been a long time coming, 16, almost 17 years that we've been in the space. And now with all things AI, we'll hear more about a big rebrand we did about 6 weeks ago, where we are moving away from just offering Grammarly as the best, most trusted writing tool in this new era, but we want to offer lots of tools, and we want to bring those tools to wherever people are working and writing. And so I'm happy to share more about Superhuman and the company that is representative of Grammarly and a host of other tools in the space.
Okay. That's really interesting. And I know Rowan-Cabarrus has been partnering with Grammarly for what?
3 years, I believe. This is our 3rd year.
Okay. I remember when we first looked at getting Grammarly installed in our computers, I emailed Zach and I was like, hey, how do we go about setting this up? He's like, Jenny is the person to talk to about that. So Jenny Billings, can you just kind of enlighten us a little bit on how this partnership with Grammarly came to be?
Sure. So North Carolina likes to change a lot of developmental coursework and designs. And so we were going through another restructure with developmental English. And so at that time, we were using EdReady software, which had a lot of writing tools and editing tools that was built directly in the software, which is what we were using. But we wanted to branch out from there, and we wanted to do something a little bit different and establish a new partnership. So Tina Boone and I at the time were trying to figure out what that was going to look like and what type of partnership we thought would be beneficial to developmental English students, but eventually curriculum English students as well. And so we were sitting there, and we had emailed a couple publishers and, third-party vendors and things like that. And we were sitting in my office, and I said, why don't we reach out to Grammarly? Like, I'm sure they probably won't respond. They're so big. They probably won't even see my email. But for funsies, let's just reach out and see if they'd be willing to talk to us.
Yeah, what's the worst that could happen?
Right. And so we sent an email, and within a couple of days, I got an email response from our partner then from Ukraine, and had a meeting and have been together ever since. So it really just started as something that we needed outside of the learning management system, a new partner for Rowan-Cabarrus, and something that was going to help facilitate and engage our students through the revision and editing process, rather than just being something that they would track changes to and accept without understanding why they accepted it. So that's why Grammarly was clearly the selection. And I'm so thankful that they responded and that we've been together all these years. So, yeah.
Yeah. And this originally started as something for students.
Yep. So even though this started in fall of 2022, specifically for developmental English faculty and students, in just 3 years, we moved to an institutional model. So now this is available to all students, all faculty and staff for free at no cost to them. So that partnership, as you can see, has really grown, and it's definitely something that we're really proud of.
Why was that a decision you guys moved forward with in terms of opening that up for everyone? And how have you seen it been beneficial and supportive of our faculty and staff here as well?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Carter. The thing for us is that we always want faculty and staff to have access to the same tools that our students have access to. And that does a couple of things. Primarily, it helps them be really good users of the platform. And then when students ask them examples of best use, they're able to respond to that pretty easily and pretty frequently. With Grammarly especially, the variety of platforms and ways that you can access Grammarly, I think really appeals to our faculty. So they can install Grammarly on their desktop in their office, or the laptop they carry to class, or the iPad that they personally own, or they can use the plugin in a browser if they're on a public computer or something of the like. And that flexibility for them has been really important. And we see them using those tools in their own professional lives, whether it's writing emails to students or to colleagues in the college. And we also see that as they become more in tune with using it in their day-to-day, they're talking to students about it, and they're modeling that good AI citizenship behavior there for their students.
That's an important component too, that good AI citizenship and how they use it. Jenny Billings, can you expand a little bit on how that's being used and incorporated into the English courses, and how you're using Grammarly to teach AI literacy and responsible use rather than focusing on like, "Ooh, this was written with AI. We got you." That kind of scenario. Because I think that's how it all started. A lot of that was just like, man, we got to figure out how we can make sure that we can identify AI and look for where AI has been used instead of it being used as a tool. So how are y'all taking that approach in the classroom?
That's absolutely how it started. So when the conversation started, probably in November of 22-ish, that was the conversation around, we have to stop this. We can't allow it. How are we going to catch it? I even asked Grammarly that, like, do you have some type of detection tool, So yeah, the thing that is most important to us at Rowan-Cabarrus, I think, just being English in general and pioneers of pretty much everything tech ed and technology wise, is that we wanted to make sure that we were going to be on the front end of it, that we were going to be proactive, that we were not going to be reactive, and that we could kind of help guide that conversation. So having a partner like Grammarly that's trusted, just like Jenny Maxwell said, which I love that because you absolutely are Grammarly, having such a trusted partner in that space was so important because this was a very scary thing for faculty. And so the first thing that we had to do was create this partnership and help them understand the parameters and the built-in, scaffolding that happens within Grammarly and how you can use these AI tools or you can prohibit their use. You can teach ethical AI use through Grammarly or you can hold back a little bit. Like we had those initial parameters where we could turn certain features on, certain features off. We could control the audience of who had what feature and that kind of thing. So that's really how I had to kind of tiptoe in to this realm, if you will.
So was that customizable by
through
individual
the admin
individual faculty
through
members?
Grammarly.
Through okay.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, and I had access to that, and I could kind of cater the entire experience for faculty and students when we first started. So that helped me tiptoe into it and kind of get faculty warmed up to know they don't have access to everything yet because I need you to feel comfortable first, and then let's come up with the assignments and how we're going to talk about it and how we're going to introduce this to students. And then as we familiarize ourselves with Grammarly and its capabilities, and as students warm up to the moral and ethical use, then we're going to start giving them more and more access to what we have here. And so I think that was what led to the success and why it was so easily embraced, was that it wasn't like a chat GPT that was just everything out there and, they didn't feel like they could control it. With this, I was able to kind of very slowly kind of open the floodgates, if you will. And so now we teach moral and ethical use of AI in ACA 122, which you guys have heard about before on a previous podcast. We teach it in developmental English and what that means to use AI and what generative AI is and what it's capable of and how you should be using it at Rowan-Cabarrus. There's an assignment in English 111 that has them ask AI to write a personal narrative about them because unless they're all over the internet, it's not going to know much about them. So for example, it said, I have 6 cats. I hate cats. I hate all the cat lovers. And so it's just kind of a fun thing and just trying to get that information out there. And then Laura Beth Johnson, who teaches for me, she talks a lot about AI in her classes, shows them how to use it for revision and editing and outlining and idea drafting and stuff like that. And so she's really tried to embrace it, and she had a committee for us that really helped kind of open up this whole AI conversation. So yeah, we've been very involved in it, partnered with some of Zack's faculty when he was dean over that area. And so we've really been trying to stay ahead of it, educate ourselves as much as possible, and not let the fear creep in that creates all the negativity and the warning signs and the red flags and the catch, that criteria. We're not in that mindset. We can't be.
Yeah. The throttling back of capabilities for generative AI with Grammarly, Jenny Maxwell, is that something that you've seen other colleges and universities gravitate towards as a way to kind of test the waters a little bit?
Yes, not only is it sort of our preferred method of working with our institutional partners, but I think it's our moral responsibility as a company that's providing a product to education to make sure that we are delivering on the specificities and the admin controls that are going to be most valuable to our faculty, right? And I think one of the things that's been really both exciting for me as a leader in this space, but also as a way to differentiate us culturally is many of the big LLM companies are fine with being a one size fits all, shove this down everybody's face. Good luck, education, figure it out. And I have such deep feeling about offering a better path, offering a path that involves us delighting the market commercially, right? Because what we are building comes from the requests from people who are actually teaching students, who say, this is good. It could be great if you did 1, 2, or 3. And so we have built in the last several years, an advisory board motion, both in practical, where our key institutional partners come to our headquarters and sit with our engineers and sit with our product team leaders and specifically share out why certain things that may work for professionals definitively don't work for students, or where they could work even more effectively. And I think it's our secret sauce. It's not that big of a secret to build for your customer, but it is something that a lot of AI and tech companies forget to do or ignore. But I love the way that our partnership organically worked through that process, which is you kind of had to tiptoe into the swimming pool 3 years ago because we opened up a generative AI functionality within Grammarly. And I'll tell you, our customer base on the teaching side went through their 7 stages of grief about it, right? They were like, oh my God, this trusted program that's always done this one little thing is now going to give, right? And we feel this obligation to saying, look, your students are already going to get generative AI. They're going to get it. Whether you want to police it or not, it's out in the world. It's the fastest adopted student tool in the history of anything we've ever measured. Can we introduce it in a way where faculty have more control? Can we give you guys much more nuanced exposure depending on course or faculty member or learning outcome or whatever? And that's sort of like our North Star is, anyone that tells you that their way is the best way right now is crazy, because we're only 3 years into this technology. We don't really know all the things that it can do. We don't really know all of the things we need to build to protect from erosion of learning gains. But we have to do it alongside our institutional partners. We have to, make sure that the voice of the traditional faculty member that has hundreds of students they have to serve every week, that their needs are met and that the information that they can glean because of the power of AI really helps give coaching and feedback the sort of like lighter fluid it needs in order to be effective at coaching and teaching that many students. And so I have a lot of optimism about how we will continue this relationship, and others who've been, hand raisers and leaders in the last few years with adopting Grammarly at the scale with very specific, goals that we wanted to achieve together. But this is the way. And if I'm okay with us not being the biggest player in the AI space, as long as what we produce alongside our customers. Like, to me, that is best measurement of success.
You mentioned erosion of learning gains, and I'm curious how that translates to the classroom and even beyond. I think it's really easy as a student to take the shortcut, and just because it can do the job and it can do it well in a lot of instances doesn't mean that I, as a student, am making the gains that I traditionally would have. So how do you pair, and Jenny Billings, maybe if you could expand on this a little bit, how do you prepare students to enter a workplace that generative AI is all over, but also teach them like the critical thinking component of it to continue to think critically about problems and solutions? And how do you marry those two things together? Do you know what I don't know if I'm asking that very clear, but
I'm with you. It's definitely not something that's easy, because if they are just, plopping a prompt in there and asking it to generate that paper for them, they're not yielding the learning that we need them to. For example, we did this little practice assignment where we gave them a prompt, told them to choose whatever, AI they wanted to use. And then a week later, we asked them about the paper that they submitted that was supposedly theirs. We were like, okay, cool. So who was the person that you submitted your paper on? Over half the students didn't even know the topic, the person of the essay.
Wow.
Because they were not going back and reading it. They were not understanding how it even matched the prompt, if it did. And so that was one of our biggest examples. Like, just because you're able to use it in a moral and ethical way doesn't mean that you get to check out. You've got to be part of the process. You've got to go through and make sure that it is responding to the assignment, that you're using it in the way that your instructor and your faculty allow you to use it, because that's part of the policy here at Rowan-Cabarrus that Zack and I have presented here recently to the board of directors. And so you first have to make them understand what Gen AI is, what it's capable of, what the threshold and the boundaries are here at Rowan-Cabarrus, how it can help them, how it can hurt them. But then at the same space, you also have to acknowledge that this is what they're going to be using in the future. Many of their jobs are forever impacted already by its use. And so now you have to teach them in English things like prompting. In order for you to get what you want, you're going to have to prompt this thing. And here's what that looks like. Here's how to write a prompt that'll go into Grammarly as an approved partner tool here at Rowan-Cabarrus. And it doesn't stop there. You don't get to just blindly submit it without looking at its formatting and its indicators that may be things that it's telling you to plug in information here. I mean, some of our students, especially when this first started, were just copying and pasting with the prompt still in it. It'd be like, yes, sure, happy, come on now, we got to do better than that. And so I think it all goes back to fear too. We cannot be afraid of this because they're going to have to use it. We have to prepare them to use it, but we also need them to understand that using it in full capacity to replace your learning is not going to benefit you or us. And so you have to integrate it. You have to use it to supplement your learning, not replace you, not replace your voice. And so we teach them to use it to help them combat the blank page. We teach them to use it to revise and edit and to enhance and supplement what they're already doing and what they've already said. But by no means should this be replacing them. We care about them. I can hear AI talk to me anytime, Alexa, but I want to hear from my students.
Yeah, replacing the blank page. I think that's a great example of how it can be utilized in the classroom as a launching off point.
Absolutely.
So can you just quickly touch on what safeguards for faculty that are hesitant about integrating Gen AI into their curriculum? What safeguards are put in place for faculty to help them make sure that students are using it responsibly and not substituting their work for Gen AI as a whole?
So in my mind, there's 4. So the first one is that a lot of the publishers and folks that we work with can work almost seamlessly with Grammarly. Like Grammarly can hover over basically anything. So it can help you revise and edit things in Blackboard. It can help make your email better. It already works with things that students already use. So that was kind of the first way to kind of get faculty to kind of calm down about it. It's going to help you with what you're already using, Now, as for Gen AI in Grammarly and the safeguards there's 3. So one, from an admin perspective, you're able to turn off and turn on certain features. So in the beginning, even with the agents, you don't have to allow them to have access to all the agents. You can pick and choose. You can disable Gen AI. You have the ability to kind of safeguard that and customize and cater it to your institution and to what faculty and staff are comfortable with. So I love that. 2, in Grammarly, if the student goes there and says, write me a paper about this, Grammarly's prompting will even come forward and say, it looks like you want me to write a paper for you. Instead, let's start with outlining. So it helps refocus the conversation, start the student from the moral and ethical standpoint, and that's ultimately, what we love. And then there's also other safeguards that Grammarly has built in. So one is an overall score report, which is showing students what they have edited, how much of the suggestions they actually revised. It gives them a score, and that's something that they're uploading into English classes to show us what the revision and editing process looked like. It does show the different drafts. It does show what they addressed. It does show their comments. So that's a game changer for English faculty, as you can imagine. And then there's also Grammarly authorship, which hovers over everything that a student does on their device. So it knows where they're going, where they're getting their information from. Are they copying and pasting? Are they using Gen AI? But it's a student-focused, student-facing report. So the student sees their own report. They're like, oh, wow, that just saw me do all these things. Probably shouldn't submit that to Dr. Billings yet. And so this is how we have really leveled that conversation with, academic integrity and how, we don't want you to use it in that way. Now the student knows that the report has seen their entire process for developing this assignment or writing assignment. And so students can submit their authorship report with their assignment, and now we have a conversation starter.
That's an important component too. So I want to transition a little bit towards what's next for AI, where it's in education. But as we move in that direction, every time I use some sort of generative AI, I do have a little bit of guilt when I hit generate or whatever it is, just because I know there's a heavy toll from like an environmental standpoint and from a sustainability standpoint. But that's a problem to be solved. And I think it can be solved. And I'm hoping that there's viable solutions moving forward, because I don't think Gen AI is going away. I don't think you can backpedal on this. So, Zach, just from your perspective and the college's approach to it, when you talk about the conversation around environmental impact of AI, how does the college balance that innovation with its commitment to sustainability as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. Carter, you're absolutely right. I don't think that it's going anywhere. Generative AI is going to be a part of all of our lives for the foreseeable future. And what we're not doing as a college is trying to run our own server farm. There are colleges out there who've tried to do their own sort of generative AI models using one of the free platforms. And we decided very deliberately not to do that. And we use a great bit of scrutiny with all of our technology partners. We work with Grammarly, we work with Microsoft, because we know that they have extensive corporate social responsibility policies in place, and they're looking out for these things and trying to make sure that the efforts that they put into it are in the right place. And I'll mention Microsoft specifically. Copilot is the other Gen AI platform that we encourage students to use. We do that because we're a Microsoft school, as are most colleges in North Carolina. And they, for years, have been building out a cloud infrastructure called Microsoft Azure. And Azure positioned them to be able to scale up Gen AI in a way that might look a little bit different at a company like Microsoft that has that capacity in place versus some of the other platforms that we see.
Awesome. So when we look at the AI developments that are on the horizon that may shape instruction and student support, where do y'all see some of these developments taking place?
Sure, I can start from the college's perspective. I think there's a major breakthrough heading our way in the form of quantum computing. And I think a lot of us in information technology are waiting for that, which will also help with the previous question, Carter, about the environmental impacts of AI as well. In addition to that, all of the major AI providers have new models coming out at sort of a regular pace. And each of those new models integrates new features that are helpful in different and new ways that we haven't thought of before.
So quantum computing, can you break that down? What is quantum computing in layman's terms? Because I've heard it, and I've heard it is going to be the future of AI, of Gen AI, and right, almost the savior. So yes, what is quantum computing at a more basic level?
Yeah, well, there's several different takes on what quantum computing could look like, but I'll talk about just one aspect of it. In traditional computer science, we think of things in a binary perspective, so zeros and ones. And that's been how we have viewed computer science for probably the last 75 years or so. And with quantum computing, you have this idea that instead of just having a 0 and a 1, or an on and an off, that there's other positions between on and off, or between 0 and 1. So when quantum computing is able to be rolled out at scale, you have a level of capacity that doesn't exist with computer science as we know it today. So the impact there could be that the large amount of compute power that's needed for something like generative AI could be done on much, I'm not going to say lower spec hardware, but could be done certainly with less power consumption than what we see today.
Jenny Maxwell, from your perspective with Grammarly, what AI developments do you see on the horizon that may help shape instruction and student support?
This topic has literally my heart racing so fast. I feel most motivated about what the next couple years are going to do in education. I actually think we've seen the last 3 years sort of an emergence of a gold rush, right? Every tool now has a generative AI component, lots of new generative AI companies, all the promise of productivity, which like Jan, who cares about productivity if you actually don't achieve any professional or educational goals. I'll tell you, we have a pretty big, audacious goal. And our goals at Grammarly, since we rebranded to Superhuman, is We want to be the best in class, most trusted platform for all of your AI tools to come together and serve you as the user in ways that don't add complexity to your workflows, like the land of 1,000 tabs. We bring it all to you in an environment that actually makes you feel like you are in control, that you have a lot of insight into how you're leveraging these tools. And at the end of the day, if we do our jobs specifically in education correctly, we are going to build the best, most immersive collaboration space between students and faculty that the world has ever seen. And the way we're going to do this is, again, alongside the most innovative, forward-thinking institutions. We're really proud that we actually announced the co-build of Superhuman EDU alongside Arizona State. And we're going to be bringing agents. We launched our student agent bench back in August, and those agents sit on an actual user interface where, depending on what you may want to learn about your writing, you can engage with different agents to give you insight and analytics around if you've cited properly. If you want a research-backed counter argument to your writing, we've got an agent for that. So we want to break away from the notion that the conversation should be around LLMs. I actually think very quickly LLMs are going to be commoditized. They're going to be baked into your hardware. That's like table stakes. We believe that a lot of the tools that education has been using right now are not actually proving to create gains in student outcomes. There's a ton, billions and billions of dollars of tech debt that's being wasted, and especially now when you have a lot of fiscal unknowns about the funding of higher education. We want to make sure that we can give our institutional partners, both on the CFO side, the CIO side, or the provost academic leader side, a really good holistic understanding of what tools actually create higher faculty sentiment, better research, better student outcomes, and overall institutional effectiveness that levels up in a way that we've never been able to before. So I have a lot of optimism. Like I said, big audacious goal. Grammarly is going to be a big part of that. It's not going away. It's just going to be powered by the Superhuman platform. So we have a lot of work to be doing in the next several months to launch all of this in time for institutions to get it for next fall.
Yeah. So we were talking about quantum computing, like exponential growth. This exponential growth in regards to problem solving right now as well is what that sounds like. And I think it goes to what Jenny Billings was saying earlier about teaching our students how to use it responsibly and still be able to think critically about the problems. That's really fascinating how you've got those agents that will help come up with counter arguments to some of your discussion points. It's much more conversational versus just plugging in a prompt and receiving what it spits out. It's having a conversation.
Yeah, and I also think everything is up for grabs right now, right? Even the pedagogical sort of historical design of higher ed, that it has to be 16 weeks or 8 weeks or 4 weeks. Like, we're going to be able to create experiences for learners that meet them right where they're at and can take them through whatever experiences they are ready for in that moment and accelerate their learning on their terms. And I think that's how higher ed can finally be an experience that the consumers are really expecting and questioning right now. I actually think it's a marker of survival in the next 10 years. And so I will be a consumer of this. My kids are, youngish and will be in college in the next 5 to 10 years. So I'm really trying to build for what their world looks like. But this notion of insight and analytics in how students are using and doing the dance, if you will, with different agents, how they're project managing, how they're thinking about their thinking. How do we all take feedback? You can go onto any social media platform right now, and you can see how people take feedback, because the feedback is all emotional. It's not fact-based, and we're just really good at helping the algorithm spew out more hate. I think it's a big reason why we as a country are in the situation we're in, right? So I'm excited about the outcomes of a traditional English entry course not being about, can you formulate the 5-paragraph essay? If that is dead, right? If that is commoditized, can you understand what it means to be responsible with using this? Can you understand what a prompt is? And what Jenny was talking about, this notion of students thinking about the right prompting to get that output that they need. That is a much higher level thinking capacity than just write this essay, what's your thesis, and do your 3 paragraphs, do they back up your claims? I feel like this is where we can finally push humans to be much higher thinking than we've been. And I just feel like it's so urgent just on the civics piece and creating better people who can take feedback, who understand what research-backed claims and data is, and help them make analyses that are based on facts and not what they are reading on TikTok, right? And the discernment of those things. So we have a lot of work to do. We're going to do this. The way we're going to do this at Superhuman is we are building our own first-party native agents that sort of unlock the power of Grammarly. We have a docs, a destination workplace experience, if you will, that we have in Coda, which is a company we purchased a year ago. And there will be an educational Coda workspace where these agents and student work, you're going to be able to see all kinds of insight and analytics. And then this notion of third-party agents that either institutions can create for their students, or they can say, hey, this other institution does this one thing really well. I want to use their agent. Or, you have your tech stack and you have tools that you can't live without, and we can put those third-party agents on this bench as well, and we can create this incredibly immersive experience that is specific to both faculty, to students, and to administrators. And I think when we do that, it's going to be sort of like the most incredible outcomes that we can finally start actually leveling up what graduates and what their capacities are. And by the way, like the world of work is demanding of that, right? Like we have the luxury of being in a third of the Fortune 500 who use Grammarly and Superhuman every day at work. And so we know what our employer partners are saying they really need out of graduates. And so we're excited to sort of build that bridge alongside educational institutions who say, we love this, we want to be bold, and we want to work in partnership with you to do it.
I just have one more question for you and then we'll wrap it up. But my question for you is going to be from an educational side. Where do you see the next 5 to 10 years headed in terms of AI integration in higher education?
So something that Jenny Maxwell just said that really reminds me of a conversation that Zack and I had with our president, Dr. Spalding. Something that's very important to her is to create better citizens in Rowan and Cabarrus counties, and this is a way that we can do that. And so that's something that's going to be important for me moving forward, is to make sure that I help expand Grammarly into the lives of other students and faculty and staff, that we help them understand that these agents allow them agency in the writing process, and that they can critically think about what agent to use where. And, maybe they're going to avoid working in databases such as NC Live because they don't know how to get into it or they don't understand, but they know that that agent can help them pull articles from databases that are peer-reviewed, So it's just kind of refocusing the conversation, helping them understand that AI can grow with them and that it can be something that they can customize and cater to their own learning experience, but by no means will it replace their learning experience. And so we're just going to try to stay ahead of the conversation, try to stay, really tightly integrated with Grammarly so we can help guide that conversation. And I look forward to seeing, where it can go and how we can help influence it rather than have it influence us. I think we need to put the human back into it. And so we look forward to being superhuman with Superhuman.
Jenny, that was really well said. What I would add is in corporate and continuing education, we talk to a lot of our local employers. And the comment or the variations of this comment that we hear all the time, it's along the lines of, you might not lose your job to AI, but you might lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we want to help students with here, is make sure that they understand that this is an assistive technology that can take their skills to the next level. And that's how we try to position it.
Well, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation today. I feel like we could probably have this conversation in about 1 month, 3 months, 6 months time. It may look completely different. Absolutely. With huge gains made in Gen AI and the approach that we're taking. But maybe we'll put this on the calendar for a little bit further down the road just to have a, hey, where are we now conversation. But thank all three of y'all for being here today. Jenny Maxwell with Superhuman and Grammarly, thank you for coming and sharing your expertise and your perspective on where we are. Dr. Hubbard, Dr. Billings, thank both of y'all for being here today as well. And it's been a pleasure talking with y'all.
Thank you. Take care.
It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Carter. You too.
Thanks for listening to Trail Mix. For For more stories, updates, and to learn more about how Rowan-Cabarrus Community College can help you navigate forward, visit us at www.rccc.edu. Next time on Trail Mix.
Every student is different. The impact is different. Every student has a different story. But the student is thankful for their scholarship because it means that they no longer have to worry about ever being homeless again.